Good afternoon, everyone. See, the three topics which are remaining here is the geostatic changes in the sea level, that is the rise and the fall of sea level. There can be natural, there can be anthropogenic factors. Second is importance of corals, and the third is, इसके ऊपर we had a discussion, the rising sea and the sinking cities, and the third is UNCLOS, United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Seas. एक रिलेटेड टॉपिक जो डायरेक्टली दिया नहीं है बट आ सकता है, दैट इज ocean acidification. So before I begin, what is ocean acidification? The ocean water is becoming acidic, that is uska pH decreases. Why? Because it forms weak carbonic acid. Why it forms carbonic acid? Because water will react with CO2 to form carbonic acid. So why it is this happening? This is happening because of global warming associated with increasing greenhouse gas emissions. So जितना भी greenhouse gas emissions in the form of carbon dioxide we give, general law is जो भी हम देते हैं, whatever the atmospheric gases etc are there, उसमें से 40% is going to go inside the sea, and the sea will absorb it. It may use it for the process of photosynthesis, it may use it for maintaining the balance etc in this region. But is the amount of greenhouse gas emissions increasing? Yes. So therefore 40% of this increased greenhouse gas emissions are going into the sea. As a result, there is more carbon dioxide in the sea, and hence there will be acidification of the oceans. जैसे ही oceans become acidified, it starts dissolving the calcium carbonate. And which animals have calcium carbonate? It starts dissolving the corals and other shell bearing animals, which has an impact on the food chain of the ocean. Fine. Though I give this PPT to GS, I will share this with you also. हम ओशनोग्राफी कर रहे हैं, we are, yes. I'll share this with you also. ये GS के लिए पढ़ना, ऑप्शनल के लिए मत पढ़ना, because this is nothing but conditions. बहुत ही, what is a fringing reef, कैसे होता है fringing reef, what is a lagoon, what is a barrier reef, what is the difference between the barrier reef and the fringing reef, what is an atoll, subsidence theory of Darwin. Fine, general studies में we just study the subsidence theory of Darwin without taking the name of Darwin. पहले fringing reef बना, फिर barrier reef बना, फिर atoll. We are not doing here glacial control theory or anything. Fine. Fringing reef, अब धीरे धीरे barrier reef, and lastly the formation of atoll with an island, without an island, and this is a proper atoll. Conditions and distribution in India, coral reef distribution in India. But going to that, before we go further, this is obviously both for GS and for optional. That is, what are the importance of the coral reefs? Can someone find where is the importance of the coral reefs in this? Why we say the coral reefs are important, or what is happening to the corals? Coral reefs are important because they give some kind of the services to the ecosystem. When these services which are given by any corals or mangroves or etc., we divide them into 5 different or 4 different types of services. When we get something, it is known as provisioning services. They provide us. What they provide us? They provide us food, they provide us fish, they provide us tourism, they provide us any kind of an money, jobs because of the tourism. So we'll call them as the provisioning services of an ecosystem. So services of coral reef ecosystem. कोई भी ecosystem का answer ऐसा ही लिखना है, whether it is optional, whether it is GS. Fine. They provide us provisioning services. They will regulate something. Regulating services, that is, they will take excess of carbon dioxide and convert it into oxygen by doing the process of photosynthesis. They will support the development of various life forms. Mangroves hai to wahan pe different biodiversity hai. Supporting services and cultural services, they are the non-material benefits we derive from the ecosystem. Non-material benefits means you go as a tourist to some place and enjoy. You are paying the money for it, but you get an enjoyment, and that is what is known as an cultural services. So for example, provisioning services, that is the products which are obtained from the ecosystem, we call them as the provisioning services. The products which are obtained. So coral reefs support human life and livelihoods and are important economically. Isliye we are saying, so what they support? Life as well as livelihoods as well as economic activity. Nearly 50 million people depend directly or indirectly on the coral reefs for their livelihoods. This will be the difference in the, though I give it in the GS also, ye PPT, but ye factual data is more important for mains, optional. Fine, GS ke liye itna zyada ye nahi hai, you should mention the factual data here. How many people? 50 million people directly or indirectly depend upon the corals. Example, food, first provisioning services. Second, medicines. Third, jewelry. Fourth, limestones, building materials. These are the 4 types of provisioning services. For example, food, a well managed square kilometer, 1 square kilometer of a coral reef can yield 15 tons of fish annually, which is equivalent to total provision of the coral reefs of the kitna fish denge, it is valued at US dollar 100 billion. Kisne kiya hai value? This is done by United Nations in uska ecosystem assessment program. United Nations ecosystem assessment program. So all these are जो factual data है, all this is based on United Nations का data. Fine? United Nations का ecosystem assessment program which was carried out in 1997. It's the primary source of protein for the people in the coastal regions. And how many people are there? Somewhere around 1 billion people live in the coastal regions. Obviously this has increased because this was done in 1997. Population has increased. So you can write it is a primary source of protein for around 2 billion people. It is estimated that nearly 30 million of the poorest human population in the world depend entirely on coral reefs for their food. That is, they will take rice in the coastal region, but they will get protein. Jaise you eat dal in the interiors as a source of protein and rice as a source of carbohydrates. These people are going to eat fish and rice. Fish is the source of protein. Medicinal values, both in allopathy as well as traditional medicine. They are used in bone grafts, that is हड्डियां टूटने के बाद generally coral से बनाते हैं and that is used as a bone grafts. Secondly, natural sunscreen products. Thirdly, cancer medicines, and fourthly, painkillers come from the corals. They are used as ornamental resources, corals की jewelry, या in the aquariums. You generally see in the aquarium some dead corals are placed for decorative purpose, and limestone for the building materials. Fine. Have we done coral bleaching? Point generate किए थे हमने coral bleaching के. So उसमें I told you regarding Indonesia. Fine. Mining. Regulating services, services that ecosystem provides as a regulator. For example, what is a regulating service in current ecosystem? The role of a tree. Tree will purify the air around it. It acts as a regulator. Tree will give out the evapotranspiration and gives out the moisture. Thus helps in the formation of the clouds. It is a regulator. Tree gives you shade. That is a provisioning service. Tree gives you wood. That is a provisioning service. Tree gives you fruits. That is a provisioning service. Tree protects you from the storms. That's a regulating or supporting service or protective service. So coral reefs protect the shoreline by providing a physical barrier, a wall against tidal surge, extreme weather events, ocean currents, tides, winds, tsunamis, etc. And as a result, they act as a first line of defense, just like mangroves, against any kind of incoming cyclonic storm. In doing so, they prevent coastal erosion, flooding and the loss of infrastructure, saving billions and millions of dollars that goes into the repairing. Agar corals hai, mangroves hai, so there is no harm to the coastal infrastructure because they will first come and hit the coast. Anyone has gone to Andaman and Nicobar from the classroom? Are there waves there? Yeah, waves absent hai Andaman Nicobar. Absent hai. Kyun? Because waves are stopped by the corals. Go to Goa, go to Mumbai, you will see directly waves coming and hitting the coast. Fine. So this is what is the first point. The value of this protective services of the coral reefs is estimated at $314 million in Indonesia itself. Why Indonesia ka example? You can use this example in the tsunami. Thoda be more creative in answer writing. That is, though the Indonesia is located on the plate boundary, the value of the protective services of the corals are estimated at $314 million, thus saving Indonesia from the tsunami. Malaysia में ज़्यादा death होते हैं whenever there is tsunami. Indonesia में कम होते हैं because Indonesia has somewhat tried to manage उसका corals. तमिलनाडु में ज़्यादा death है पर अंडमान एंड निकोबार के tribes कम मरते हैं. Why? Protective nature of the corals. Supporting services, those that are necessary for all other ecosystem services to work, that are known as the supporting services. You will have to remember this definition. Supporting services are those that are necessary, and this all is, though I am taking in oceanography, this all is in our chapter number 5, ecosystem. Fine. Supporting services are those that are necessary for the production of all the other ecosystem services. So first, coral reefs are essential part of land development. That is, white color ka beaches, white sands you say. Whenever you say white sands, it is wrong because sands can never be extremely white. They are the dead corals ka skeletons which have been made very small by erosion and they are laid on the beaches. Right? So the natural action of the waves breaks the pieces of calcified rock corals and those are washed up to the beaches. Through the process, देखो ये optional के लिए है, GS वाले सिर्फ blue में याद रखेंगे और अपनी language में लिखेंगे. Optional वाले थोड़ा proper language में लिखेंगे. The natural action of the waves breaks the pieces of calcified corals and these are washed up to the beaches. Through the process of natural physical breakdown, those large pieces are broken into smaller and smaller pieces and eventually become a part of rubble building these beaches. Fine. So they help in the formation of beaches. Supporting service, because they are present in the photic zone, they have large amount of food and nutrients available. So these are the regions of very high biodiversity. ये हम कहते हैं इसको rain forest of the oceans. Covering less than 1% of the ocean floor, the reef supports estimated 25% of all marine life. Getting it? 25%, 1/4 of the marine life is presented even in the area that is less than 1% in the total region. Fine. With over 4,000 fishes, species of the fishes alone, 4,000 species, imagine the number of fishes that are there. Reefs provide spawning ground, nursery, refuge and feeding. Spawning मतलब अंडे देने के लिए, nursery जब उनके small tadpoles होंगे, refuge whenever there is any kind of a natural disaster, cyclones, tsunamis, all these animals will come and stay in the coral so that corals are not easily destroyed, therefore they are safe. And feeding areas for large variety of organisms including sponge, cnidarians, worms, crustaceans, mollusks, echinoderms, ये सब हमने किया है. Benthic, pelagic deposits वाले organisms है ये. Sea urchins, squirts, sea turtles and sea snakes, and therefore they are known as the drain forest of the oceans. Clear? And in doing so, they have very high primary productivity. And because they have very high primary productivity means वहाँ पे बहुत ज़्यादा food बनेगा. Photosynthesis होगा, small fishes will be there, large fishes will be there. इसलिए we should know that they form the base of the food chain. Zooxanthellae photosynthesize and produce their own food. Corals benefit from the association. Because of the immense diversity of the coral reefs, there is a great deal of exchange of the nutrients and primary productivity matlab food production is very high. Thus, reefs are important for sustaining the marine food chain. Getting it? As they are the base level of the food chain. Destroying of the corals disrupts the marine food chain and the food web, may result into the dead zones in the oceans. This is an example of how the marine food chain works. Phytoplankton, seaweed, seagrass, zooplanktons, sea urchins, parrotfish, sea urchins, squids, sardines, snapper. Sardines are the smaller fishes. This is an example of a squid. And level 4 is shark, tuna, matlab bade fishes, etc. And lastly, cultural services. These are non-material benefits people obtain from the ecosystem such as spiritual enhancement, cognitive development. Garden में रोज जाके शाम को अगर time spend किया तो maybe stress कम, cognitive development, recreation, etc. So coral reefs are the important recreational sites for snorkelers, scuba divers, recreational fishermen and beach lovers. What do you mean by snorkelers? What is snorkeling? If you go below the water deep, it is scuba diving. If you take and just look and from the surface swim करते करते क्या है नीचे, that is snorkeling. Generally जिनको swimming नहीं आते वो glass के boat में बैठते हैं और देखते हैं what is the marine life below. That is what is the snorkeling. Scuba diving is going exactly at the depth. Example, Seychelles tourism was estimated to have generated 1/5 of the GDP, 60% of foreign exchange. Maldives, over 90% of the government tax revenue comes from import duties and tourism related taxes, and almost 40% of the workforce is employed. कोई भी एक example. The Great Barrier Reef generates $1 billion per year. Fine? And then the value of the coral reefs globally is $9.9 trillion US dollars. ये सब 97 में हुआ था. उसके बाद United Nations did not calculate. That time it was here. Right? The global cost of the coral bleaching are calculated to range from $20 billion to $84 billion. Severe bleaching. The contribution to the employment of the healthy Great Barrier Reef to the Australia is estimated at 53,000 full-time jobs. Of 54,000 also you can write. Agar, and see, we call Australia as a developed nation. Developed nation में अगर primary industrial activity is giving so much jobs, that is a huge amount. इसलिए कोई भी एक example यहाँ से. and hence conclusion में coral reefs provide the economic and the ecosystem services. जो भी conclusion आपको इस handout से लेना है. Fine. So what is the importance of the coral reefs? Clear? And now we come to UNCLOS. Static changes in the sea level. You will get the handout within half an hour. What is UNCLOS? United Nations Convention on the Laws of the Seas. How the sea should be used. So अभी तक जो हमें मिलेगा UNCLOS पे या बुक्स में है वो है सिर्फ UNCLOS. What it is. I also want you to find out what are the issues and challenges of the UNCLOS. Don't draw anything. UNCLOS is nothing but an agreement which divides the oceans into inland seas, territorial seas, and from 200 nautical miles from here into exclusive economic zone. And any country in this region has, if this is a land, the exclusive economic zone of a region is 200 nautical miles from here. सबसे पहले इनलैंड सीज और टेरिटोरियल सीज कैसे फॉर्मुलेट करते हैं? पुराने जमाने में तोफ रखते थे. जितना दूर तक वो तोफ का गोला गया, जितना दूर तक वो कैनन गया, दैट वाज द इनलैंड सीज, टेरिटोरियल सीज. एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन, नेवी, कोस्ट गार्ड, स्टेट पुलिस. दिस इज स्टेट का टेरिटरी, दिस इज गवर्नमेंट ऑफ इंडिया का टेरिटरी जहां पे कोस्ट गार्ड, एंड उसके आगे दिस इज द नेवी का टेरिटरी. अब UNCLOS कहता है इंडिया हैज ऑल द सॉवरेन राइट्स इन दिस रीजन. UNCLOS कहता है इंडिया हैज ओनली द इकोनॉमिक राइट्स बट नॉट द सॉवरेन राइट्स इन दिस रीजन. मतलब इट हैज एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक राइट्स. हम इसमें से कुछ भी एक्सप्लोर कर सकते हैं बट वी कैन नॉट स्टॉप अबाउट आउटसाइड प्लेन और आउटसाइड इवन द प्लेन, अंडरस्टैंड, इसके ऊपर, और इवन द आउटसाइड शिप फ्रॉम यूजिंग दिस रीजन. And uske aage is the high sea, which is common to all the nations. Fine. अब issues क्या क्या है? UNCLOS is an old agreement which has told about how to use the seas. Sorry. But suppose if this is Russia and if this is USA, 200 miles, nautical miles of Russia, 200 nautical miles of USA. So किसका है ये समंदर? या whose basically this belongs, Indian fishermen, yes, Sri Lankan fishermen. Unclause is silent on this. 200 nautical miles mein hamara hai, there is a Sri Lanka is also there. So this is just one, ये पुरानी चीज है जिसके ऊपर silent है. Today the critics are saying unclause should deal with dead zones in the oceans which are associated with the marine pollutions. Unclause is silent. It should deal with rise in the sea level. Unclause in silent on it. So I'll give you the background of unclause. The United Nations Convention on the Laws of Sea. The United Nations Convention on the Law of Sea is an international treaty that entered into force. Is an international treaty that entered into force on 16th November 1994. On 16th November 1994. 16th November 1994. It is based on the premise of a broad compromise. It is based on the premise, or was premise based, it was based on the premise of broad compromise between the coastal nations, who wanted to expand their jurisdictions, who wanted to expand their jurisdictions Understanding why what I mean, who wanted to expand their jurisdiction? USA kahega nahi, my jurisdiction is even the coast of Japan. Or Russia kahega no, my jurisdiction is even here. So they wanted to expand their jurisdiction, as well as marine nations arguing for preservation of freedom on the seas. Preservation of freedom on the seas. Comma, resource exploitation, naval operations, comma, naval operations, and shipping. UNCLOS has imposed significant limits. UNCLOS has imposed significant limits as well as obligations. Obligations matlab duties on the coastal states. देखो, this is polity, इसमें कोई geography है नहीं. On the coastal states, इसलिए language इतनी tough लग रही है. Duties, obligations on the coastal states to protect the marine environment, as well as to prescribe legislative and enforcement jurisdiction. Can someone tell me what is the difference between legislative and enforcement jurisdiction? And enforcement? लेजिस्लेटिव कि लेजिस्लेचर जो है कब तक के लॉ बना सकता है, और कोस्ट गार्ड जुडिशियरी कितने लॉ एनफोर्स कर सकते हैं. दैट इज द कंट्रोवर्सी. इफ इट इज लोकेटेड इन द इनलैंड सीज अ शिप, तो इंडियन कोर्ट्स कुछ भी कर सकते हैं यहाँ पे, बिकॉज लेजिस्लेशन हैज गिवन द जुरिस्डिक्शन. बट इफ इट इज आउटसाइड, Indian court कुछ नहीं कर सकता. That is the controversy that happened when the Italian ship or naval officers killed Kerala ka fishermen. India says it was inside our territorial sea and therefore we have the full authority, full control on it. Italy says नहीं, हम आपके इसके बाहर के थे, इसलिए Indian courts have no jurisdiction. जो भी होगा naval officers का इटली गवर्नमेंट करेगी. Fine. सो इनिशियली वो ऑफिसर्स हमारे तिहाड़ जेल में थे, बट जब इटली का प्राइम मिनिस्टर वो सब आया तो हमने उनको छोड़ दिया. नाउ दे हैव गॉन अवे फ्रॉम इंडिया. सुप्रीम कोर्ट उनको बुलाता है, बट दे इटली सेज इट इज आउटसाइड योर जुरिस्डिक्शन, यू कैन नॉट एनफोर्स इट. गेटिंग इट? दिस कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑन सीज, इसको कहते हैं कॉन्स्टिट्यूशन ऑन सीज. This constitution on seas divides the sea into first internal waters, Note down, the country has full sovereignty. The country has full sovereignty in the regions of internal waters. And can make any laws. Foreign vessels have no right of passage. एक ही पूरा है right of passage. Have no right of passage. No right of passage within the internal waters without permission. Now, for example, you know this building has two entrances, Pusa Road and ek piche wala road. Can the people of this building restrict the vehicles coming from Pusa Road and going to piche wala road? Yes. So we can restrict the right of passage without permission, obviously. Can we do it on the main road ki nahi, is building ke samne se ek bhi gaadi nahi jayegi? We cannot do it, right? So that is the external waters. This is the internal waters. This is what is known as right of passage. कोई शिप ये नहीं कह सकता पाकिस्तान की हो, इंडिया की हो, या इवन हमारे फ्रेंडली कंट्री रशिया की, कि आई विल पास थ्रू दिस वाटर्स विदाउट द परमिशन ऑफ इंडिया. फाइन. एंड यू लिंक इट टू द जीएस, एनवायरमेंट इकोलॉजी. शिप में क्या है क्या नहीं इज रेगुलेटेड बाय बेसल कन्वेंशन, Rotterdam Convention. Basel Convention on? No, that is the Stockholm Convention. Basel Convention is on prior informed consent. Rotterdam Convention is to stop the dumping of goods. I will come to that in environment and ecology section. So why I am saying this is not so good, because this should, अब देखो for example any ship, Russia की ship, US की ship is passing through the internal waters of India, taking the permission of Indian government, is carrying a nuclear stockpile, is carrying chemical waste, fine. And though India ने permission दिया उसको कि इंडोनेशिया जाना है उसको, it is passing through us, yes चले जाओ आप, for unfortunately उसको Indian waters में accident हुआ. So कहाँ की इकोलॉजी खराब हो जाएगी, यूएसए की या इंडिया की? इंडिया की. So इसीलिए अनक्लॉज उसको गवर्न नहीं करता, इसीलिए ये कन्वेंशन है. बेसल कन्वेंशन ऑन प्रायर इन्फॉर्म्ड कंसेंट, रॉटरडैम कन्वेंशन ऑन द ट्रांसबाउंड्री मूवमेंट ऑफ हजार्डस गुड्स. गेटिंग इट? जो मतलब ये है इसके नेगेटिव्स. सेकंड, टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स. It is the baseline, it is the baseline at a distance of 12 nautical miles. देखो जहां तक तोफ का गोला जा सकता है 12 nautical miles, इसलिए टेरिटोरियल वाटर, ये मेरी टेरिटरी है. बिकॉज अगर कोई आर्मी अटैक कर रही है तो पुराने, इफ यू हैव गॉन टू एनी कोस्टल रीजन, आपने देखा होगा पुराने किलों के पास हमेशा तोफ रहती थी. दैट यूज्ड टू डिटरमाइन द इंटरनल टेरिटरी, टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स of 12 nautical miles, in which the parent country, is free to set laws, regulate the use and the utilization of its resources, Alien vessels या foreign vessels एक ही बात है. Will they be allowed or not allowed? Alien vessels are not allowed to enter, except, देखो एक एक्स्ट्रा प्रोविजन आ गया, except innocent passage. Innocent passage was not even allowed in the internal waters, it is allowed in the territorial waters. What do you mean by innocent passage? The passage of the international ship which is not prejudicial to anyone. ये है लॉ की लैंग्वेज, मतलब जो गलती से घुस गया अंदर विदाउट परमिशन, इनोसेंट पैसेज. फाइन, नथिंग एल्स. एग्जाम में ये नहीं. Archipelagic waters. What are archipelagos? Group of islands. Fine. What is pelagic? Inside the oceans. So, we understanding why we call group of islands which are formed due to ocean-ocean convergence as archipelagos, because they are arcs, but in which zone? In the pelagic zone. That is in the oceans. Therefore, this is pelagic zone, you already know. Archipelagos, matlab the land in the pelagic zone. Archipelagic waters. This applies to the states. This applies to the states consisting, made up of archipelagos, made up of archipelagos. Full stop. The water inside the baseline, थोड़ा लिखो फिर मैं समझा दूंगा. The water inside the baseline is considered as similar to the internal waters with the only exception being the third party has the right for innocent passage. Third party has the right of innocent passage. Internal waters के बाकी के इसमें do we have the right of innocent passage? No. अब what do you mean by baseline? Suppose this is उसका continental shelf. ये पूरा इंडोनेशिया का कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल्फ है. अब इंडोनेशिया का कैसे डिफाइन करेंगे टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स? वी कैनॉट. सो ये पूरा रेड कलर का लाइन विच इज द फारदेस्ट एक्सटेंशन ऑफ कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल्फ इज टेकन एज अ बेस लाइन. उसके बाद इंटरनल वाटर्स, उसके बाद टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स, उसके बाद कंटेजियस जोन्स. सो यहाँ पे सिर्फ इस स्टेटमेंट का यही मीनिंग है कि फॉर द आइलैंड आर्क्स व्हाट आर द laws. So it is the baseline. Baseline is nothing but the extension of continental shelf. Clear? Contiguous zone. कुछ नहीं, रटने वाली चीज है ये, समझने वाली कुछ है ही नहीं इसमें. Contiguous zone. It is a region of 12 nautical miles. Nautical miles is a way of measuring distance in the sea. 12 nautical miles. Beyond the territorial waters. Beyond the territorial waters. 12 nautical miles मतलब कितना किलोमीटर जनरली? 22 kilometers. Beyond the territorial waters. A country has a right of pollution, taxation, immigration in this region. pollution, taxation, immigration in this region. And now you can draw the diagram. अभी तक खत्म नहीं हुआ है. Draw anything you like as a land. मैंने जैसे ड्रॉ किया जरूरी नहीं वैसे ही. All the outstanding parts of the country are joined together and this becomes the internal waters. क्या कैसे internal waters measure करेंगे? जितने भी outstanding spurs है, land के parts है, इनसे एक parallel line draw करेंगे और ये बन गया internal water. So can I say, और यहाँ से फिर 12 nautical miles, 200 nautical miles. So if the country is this way, if this is my imaginary country, so ये बन गया ऐसे internal waters. जितना ज्यादा outcrop है land का उतना stronger is the internal water. Therefore you have to understand क्यों ये छोटे छोटे islands को कैप्चर करना चाहता है फिलीपींस, चाइना, क्योंकि अगर ये छोटे आइलैंड्स कैप्चर हो गए तो ये लाइन आगे बढ़ गई. अंडरस्टैंडिंग द साउथ चाइना सी डिस्प्यूट, द स्मॉलर आइलैंड्स इफ दे आर सपोज टुमारो इफ दिस इज इंडिया एंड दिस इज नाउ द इंटरनल वाटर्स ऑफ इंडिया, इफ श्रीलंका वी कैप्चर द श्रीलंका, ये बन गया हमारा इंटरनल वाटर्स. फिर ये यहां से बन गया हमारा इंटर टेरिटोरियल सी, फिर यहां से 200 नॉटिकल माइल्स बन गया हमारा exclusive economic zone. And any resource if it is found in the exclusive economic zone of a country, 200 nautical miles means somewhere around 400 kilometers का region, somewhere around 400 kilometers, थोड़ा उससे कम. No other country can take anything from this. Petrol India का, cobalt India का, manganese nodules India का, सब कुछ in that region will belong to India. अब what if उस रीजन में पाकिस्तान का भी आ रहा है, श्रीलंका के भी आ रहा है, जिसकी नेवी स्ट्रांग, उसकी दादागिरी. फाइन. You will see in this diagram which I had already shown you earlier, USA का ये है कंटिन्यूअस एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन, रशिया का है ही नहीं, रशिया को ये दे दिया एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन. International community said कि it falls in the USA, so this belongs to USA. रशिया ने खुद का मांगा तो रशिया को आर्टिक दे दिया. क्यों? लॉस किसने बनाए? इंग्लिश स्पीकिंग कंट्रीज ने. यूनाइटेड नेशंस किसके अंडर है? यूएस एंड यूरोप के अंडर. सो रशिया हैज नो रूल हियर. रशिया को दे दिया था आर्टिक की, चलो इट इज फ्रोजन, कुछ काम का नहीं. अब फॉर्चुनेटली अनफॉर्चुनेटली क्या हो रहा है? आर्टिक इज मेल्टिंग एंड ये पूरा अब रशिया के अंडर है एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक्स. तब उन्होंने सोचा नहीं था 1994 में कि आर्टिक विल मेल्ट एंड व्हेन द मेल्टिंग ऑफ द आर्टिक विल गिव ऑल द पेट्रोलियम रिसोर्सेज टू रशिया. उन्होंने जबरदस्ती ये पार्ट तो ले लिया, बट नाउ दिस इज मेल्टिंग एंड रशिया इज वेटिंग व्हेन द आर्टिक इज मेल्टिंग. फाइन. अंडरस्टैंडिंग? देयरफॉर मोदी आल्सो gives line of credit to eastern Russia. Understanding? Because we all are waiting for the Arctic to melt in this region, which is extremely rich in petroleum. A parallel to this line at a distance of 12 nautical miles parallel to this line at a distance of 12 nautical miles from here, not from the top, at a distance of 200 nautical miles is the exclusive economic zone. This is the diagram I have drawn is similar to Savindra Singh ka diagram so that you will be able to recognize it. ये पूरा exclusive economic zone and then this is high C belongs to whom? High C does not belong to anyone. It is a common good, means each and every country has equal stake in the resources. Yes, but with the permission. It will have to be shared with all. Therefore, no country will go and explore it. State police, coast guards, navy. Navy. Fine. यहाँ पे किसी का कंट्रोल नहीं. यहाँ पे सिर्फ यूएसए. मीन्स किसी का कंट्रोल नहीं, मतलब यूएसए का कंट्रोल है. और चाइना इन फ्यूचर, मतलब जिसकी नेवी स्ट्रांग है, इट विल कंट्रोल दैट. The blue color area before the coming up of GST was under the customs. Therefore, IAS, IPS, foreign service जिसको interest था, they used to put. उसके बाद वो भरते थे customs. With the coming up of GST, the blue color area has gone to the state governments. All the economic activity in this region is controlled by the state governments. इसलिए अब IAS, IPS, IFS, revenue, income tax, उसके बाद audit and account, उसके बाद लोग भरते हैं customs, because customs में powers ही नहीं बची. Understanding? These were the regions जहाँ पे ports etc. used to be there. अभी भी customs के अंडर है ports और सब, but बाकी की economic activity, whether to give permission to use this land for resort or not, what kind of smuggling activity goes on there, ये सब control करता है state government. If you remember, बहुत सारे coastal states were not ready to sign GST, क्योंकि यही argument था, ये central government के अंदर होना चाहिए या state के अंदर. अब state के अंदर हो गया, therefore the state revenue department, जिसको हम कहते हैं GST department, has become very powerful, but the central GST department has become very less powerful. But remember, EEZ is not just, this entire region is exclusive economic zone. Fine. Next, exclusive economic zone. Exclusive economic zone. According to this convention, a 200 nautical miles EEZ, a 200 nautical miles EEZ includes both the seabed मतलब सी बेड के ऊपर कोई भी मिनरल है तो किसका है, उस कंट्री का है, यहां तक, एज वेल एज वाटर कॉलम, इन विच स्टेट्स और द कंट्रीज, कुछ भी एक स्टेट मतलब कंट्री ही, नॉट द इंडिपेंडेंट स्टेट्स, इन विच द कंट्रीज एक्सरसाइज sovereign rights and jurisdictions. Sovereign matlab no other country can make. What do you mean by sovereignty? Means we can make our own laws without being dependent on anyone else. Sovereign rights and jurisdiction on, ये है catch, on all economic activities. किसके ऊपर है sovereign rights? सिर्फ economic activities पे, not on the defense या कोई related activities. On all economic activities, including research, utilization and protection of resources. And protection of resources. Utilization भी, research भी and protection भी. समझ में आ गया तीनों words? But it is open to other countries. But it is open to other countries for navigation, overflight. देखो पाकिस्तान ने जब एयर स्पेस बंद कर दिया इंडिया का, यू मस्ट ऑलवेज आस्क कि चलो ये पाकिस्तान का है, यहाँ से एयर स्पेस बंद कर दिया, हम ऐसे क्यों नहीं जा सकते, हमें क्यों इतना घूम के ऊपर से जाना पड़ रहा है? बिकॉज इट कम्स अंडर द टेरिटोरियल वाटर्स, फिर हमें और दूर से जाना पड़ेगा. 24 किलोमीटर्स वी कैन नॉट यूटिलाइज इट, बिकॉज एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन में it is open to overflight. Overflight means planes can fly, comma, laying of cables and pipelines. And other lawful use with the rule of reciprocal due regard to the coastal state. coastal state. Reciprocal due regard means if Pakistan lays down the telegraphic cable without asking India, India cannot go into the International Court of Justice, क्योंकि International Court of Justice कहेगा आप भी वो reciprocal activity करो पाकिस्तान के exclusive economic zone में. Understanding? अगर किसी ने कुछ हमारे यहाँ पे सपोज अपने exclusive economic zone में कुछ पाइपलाइन बिछाने के बदले एक्सप्लोर कर लिया कुछ और इंडिया को कोई दिया नहीं, इंडिया कैनॉट गो इनटू दैट, क्योंकि देखो कैसे प्रॉपरली उनके लिए लैंग्वेज है रेसिप्रोकल ड्यू रिगार्ड. आप भी जाके यूएसए के एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन में से कोई मिनरल छीन के लेके आओ, फाइन. दिस इज व्हाट यू मीन बाय रेसिप्रोकल ड्यू रिगार्ड. देयर इज नथिंग नोन एज जस्टिस हियर, इट इज रेसिप्रोसिटी जो WTO भी फंक्शन करता है. इफ इंडिया पुट्स अ बैन ऑन सम imports of WTO of USA can put a ban on it, fine. That is the only thing they can do. They cannot fine India. Reciprocity hai, understanding? So the same reciprocity is applying here. At the last point, the unclause also defines continental shelf, also defines the external limit of the continental shelf, which may extend to 200 nautical miles. Until natural prolongation ends. Until natural prolongation ends. Until natural prolongation ends. So what is the continental shelf? यहाँ तक तो ठीक है, but suppose any country is somewhat like this कि इसका ये ऐसे गया, fine. तो फिर क्या ये पूरा इनलैंड सी, ये पूरा फिर एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन तो आधे वर्ल्ड को कवर करेगा. वो कहेगा नहीं, इट इज जस्ट योर कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल्फ. आपकी राइट्स जो है वो सिर्फ कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल्फ तक रहेगी. मे बी इट इज इन द एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन और नॉट इन द एक्सक्लूसिव इकोनॉमिक जोन. अंडरस्टैंडिंग? इफ यू कंसिडर सच समटाइम्स अ लैंड इज वेरी फार अवे, जैसे यूएसए का एल्यूशियन आइलैंड्स, तो फिर आधा रशिया भी कवर हो जाता है उसके, तो वो कहेगा नो, इट योर is from the inland sea, it is they will join all the other points which are not that long, that will be the inland sea, this will be the exclusive economic zone, ये होगा continental shelf. सिर्फ अगर any mineral is found on the continental shelf, then the country will have entire rights, बाकी के जगह it will not have rights, fine. जब continental shelf is too long. In case if the continental shelf, in case if the continental shelf is not well defined, then the continental shelf never exceeds, the continental shelf never exceeds 100 meters, sorry 100 nautical miles, मतलब 200 nautical, 100 nautical miles, continental shelf never exceeds 100 nautical miles beyond the lines, beyond the lines connecting the depth of 2500 meters. Depth connecting 2500 meters. See for example, इसका मतलब ये है, look at the coast of South America, it does not have any continental shelf. So what the countries will do in this, they will connect all the lines having the depth of 200 मीटर्स एंड उसके बाद वहां से 100 नॉटिकल माइल्स होगा कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल। इंडिया जैसे कंट्री में कोई टेंशन ही नहीं है बिकॉज प्रॉपरली डिजाइन डिफाइंड है कॉन्टिनेंटल शेल। फाइन। thus thus the unclause has properly established the ways of exploring the oceans of exploring the oceans of exploring the oceans, but still there are major issues. Still there are major issues. First major issue, USA does not agree with UNCLOS. You already know that USA does not agree with any of the major agreements. Fine. USA does not agree with the UNCLOS. Second, it has no method of conservation of biodiversity. It has no method of conservation of biodiversity beyond natural jurisdiction. कहाँ तक natural jurisdiction apply होता है? Till the contagious zone. Fine. उसके आगे की biodiversity. Therefore, in 2017, the United Nations General Assembly established an treaty on conservation and sustainable use of biodiversity, beyond national jurisdiction. इस treaty का नाम है BBNJ, बायोडाइवर्सिटी बियॉन्ड नेशनल जुरिस्डिक्शन। अभी तक अपने जीएस के बुक्स में आना बाकी है बिकॉज द फाइनल डायमेंशंस ऑफ द ट्रीटी विल बी डिसाइडेड इन अ मीटिंग एट दिस ईयर एंड। फाइन। सो दिस इज अ न्यू इंटरगवर्नमेंटल ट्रीटी विच विल स्टडी इन एनवायरमेंट इकोलॉजी। बायोडाइवर्सिटी बियॉन्ड नेशनल जुरिस्डिक्शन किसके अंडर है? नॉट अंडर सीबीडी। किसके अंडर है? यूएन जनरल असेंबली। ये चीज याद रखो। Third, UNCLOS is also silent. UNCLOS is also silent on overseas territories, on the overseas territories of many colonial nations. Understanding the Falkland Island dispute between UK and Argentina. कहाँ पे Falkland Island? अर्जेंटीना के बाजू में। कौन सॉवरेनिटी मांग रहा है उसकी? यूके। इट इज ऑल्सो साइलेंट ऑन ओवरसीज टेरिटरीज और ऑफ मेनी कॉलोनियल नेशंस, कॉमा pollution in the seas, and the general flexing of muscles, by powerful nations such as USA and China. Flexing of muscles by powerful nations such as USA and China. Example, South China Sea dispute. This convention is looked over by or is monitored by IMO. What is IMO? International Maritime Organization. IWC, International Whaling Commission, and ISA, that is International Seabed Authority. International Seabed Authority. Remember, ये मैं इसलिए डिटेल में दे रहा हूँ इंटरनेशनल सीबेड अथॉरिटी बिकॉज ऑफ द कंट्रोवर्सी दैट इज गोइंग ऑन बिटवीन इंडिया. इट इज अ intergovernmental body headquartered at Jamaica. इसका रोल is to organize, regulate and control all mineral related activities beyond the national jurisdiction. There is no problem till contagious zone. उसके बाद problems होना शुरू होता है beyond the national jurisdiction on the seabed. So why I am saying this? Because you remember the case of Indian polymetallic nodules which went to the International Seabed Authority, and in last month it has given the response in the favor of India, and therefore India has started mining the polymetallic nodules. जिसमें से आपने सिर्फ पढ़ा होगा current affairs में कि हाँ India is doing the mining of the polymetallic nodules in the Indian Ocean region. Fine. Done with this? This is what is the unclause. And coming to the handout you are having, this is what is the oceans and the climate change. Obviously this you should be doing it very quickly. The climate change and the global warming are the topics etc. ये सब मैं पढ़ूंगा नहीं, जिसको पढ़ना है you can easily do it. I have given you from the textbook, we are following. Fine. From the broad perspective, the geological record, you can underline the second paragraph, the geological record has shown that the Earth's climate is variable. There has always been a natural reasons as well as the artificial reasons for the climate change, and therefore geological record shows that Earth's climate has not just undergone climate change due to anthropogenic activities, but it has been varying. Clear with this? Evidence from the fossils in the seafloor sediments and the rocks on the land suggests that practically every place on the earth has experienced dramatic swings in the climate over the geological time. Fine? These are the things you should remember. Baki ka, forget it. But recently we are talking about the research on the human activities on the climate change. Clear with this? What comprises of the Earth's climatic system? We are starting with this chapter itself now, after we finish this. So climate is defined as the Earth's condition, etc. You already know the difference between the weather and the climate. आपको पूरा आया है? They have also given you what is the cryosphere. Refers to the ice and the snow that exist on the Earth's surface, etc. So what sometimes comprises of the climate is this. What is the importance of the climate on the Earth? So biosphere-atmosphere interaction, oceanosphere-atmosphere interaction drives the global hydrological cycle. I am not going into it right now, but keep this as a reference point. Fine, drives the global hydrological cycle in which there is a evaporation ke baad there is a precipitation, plus the other things that can influence the present day climate is the changes in the solar inputs, that is the sunspot cycle, changes in the radiation. Changes in the radiation, we are changing it. See, there are numerous reasons for the climate change. Usme se one of the reason is the changes in the solar inputs. One of the reasons is the changes in the outgoing. Ye kuch kaam ka nahi abhi, but just you will get a complete understanding. Changes in the outgoing radiation, changes in the atmospheric gas composition, changes in the ice caps and glaciers, changes in the type of the cloud cover, human influences, and obviously changes in the ocean. Out of which when we say global warming, उसमें से हम यही change कर रहे हैं सिर्फ. We are just changing the radiation. Why? Because we are increasing more of a greenhouse gas emissions and they are absorbing more of a infrared radiation and therefore global warming is occurring. हमारे पास इसकी power नहीं है. Atmospheric composition was changed naturally. Milankovitch cycle एक next topic है हमारा climatology में, इसमें हम ये सब करेंगे. That is, whenever there was large amount of volcanic eruptions, obviously the climate on the earth was more warmer. हम थोड़ा बहुत change कर रहे हैं, but major change occurred in the Pleistocene ice age का regions. Getting it? We are changing this obviously. So there are numerous reasons for the climate change. It is not just कि climate change is an anthropogenic phenomena. There is a anthropogenic as well as natural phenomena, and this is what is recorded on the Earth's surface. जो मैं underline कराऊंगा वो answer है but this is a very, very good chapter, hardly 20 pages in very easy words for you to get a complete understanding of the climate change. Just read this line. The global climate system contains many feedback loops. What this line? The global climate system contains many feedback loops such as the role of clouds at the different altitudes, the presence of fine atmospheric particles called aerosols, the shading effect of the air pollution, heat uptake by the oceans, and the addition of water vapor, moisture, etc. What I want you to focus, see the language. The global climate change has many reasons नहीं लिखा है. Proper feedback loop. कहाँ पे relate होगा? Climate change as an open system as an closed system. Systems analysis in geography. Fine. So ऐसी language लिखने की कोशिश करो. This topic could have been taught in environment ecology. This topic could have been taught in oceanography. This topic could have been taught in climatology. ये एक common topic है. Fine. So is the Earth's recent climate change a natural or human cause? Obviously we know that it is a human cause, right? Now what do you mean by determining the Earth's past climate? We'll call this as the paleoclimatology. We'll call this as a paleoclimatology. So what do you mean by paleoclimatology? It is the determining the past climate. कोई करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Natural causes of the climate change. Natural causes of the climate change. One of the natural cause of the climate change is changes in the solar energy. And here I am underlining some important points. When the solar output increases, it results into global warming, and when it decreases, it results into global cooling. Coming directly to several proposals for the climate change are based on the sunspot cycle. You already know what is a sunspot cycle. Whenever there are nuclear reactions in the sun, dark spots are found on the sun. These dark spots, when they are found on the sun, these dark spots will not allow the energy to come out. So इसलिए energy from the surrounding region will come with greater intensity, and with the understanding light को आपने रोक दिया किसी एक जगह से, from the surrounding region they will come with the greater intensity, and when they come with the greater intensity, obviously it will cause more global warming. That is one of the natural global warming. Why I have given you this book is that you should know that this dark spots are what are known as the sunspots, and एक sunspot earth के size का हो सकता है, because sun is a very, very big star. So sunspot cycle is associated with global warming. Getting it? So sunspots are huge. मैं ये underline नहीं करता because it is not giving a good response. Sunspots are huge magnetic storms that extends from the sun in its interior to its surface and are associated with sun's ejection of the particles. These particles can disrupt satellite communication but also produce aurora, which is a phenomena that is caused by the charged solar particles that interact with the Earth's magnetic field and produce lights in the sky. Fine. Another solar act, the number of sunspots seems to increase and decrease in a regular way, creating about 11-year cycle that has been observed since 1700s. Understanding why this book had the heading paleoclimatology, because it is going to study the past climatic changes from the year 1700s. Conclusion: in spite of the efforts to correlate this cycle of the sunspot activity to the temperature and precipitation changes, there is no clear evidence to support it. Means you have to show कि whether the present climate change is only anthropogenic or natural, पहले इसमें तो we don't have enough evidences. हाँ कहते हैं कि there it will result into after every 11 years it will change, but there is no proper evidence of the sunspot cycle. Getting it? Able to follow? Second is variation in the Earth's orbit. See, this is what is the elliptical orbit, and because our Earth's orbit is elliptical, sometimes the Earth will be nearer to the Sun, sometimes the Earth will be far away from the Sun. Even the tilt of the Earth keeps on shifting, and because of the tilt of the Earth keeping on shifting, there will be, because of the tilt of the Earth, we have days and nights. If the Earth का tilt changes, the length of the days and nights will change. अभी सिर्फ इतना याद रखो, till the time we have not started climate, कि because of the tilting we have the day and night. Once the Earth का day and night tilting changes, there will be different effects of the day and night. With the more day, obviously there will be warming. With the more night, there will be cooling. Fine. So the second reason for this is variation in the Earth's orbit. Fine. Natural mechanism of climate change. So changes in the shape of the orbit, variations in the angle that Earth makes with the plane, and wobbling of the axis causes fluctuation in the seasonal and latitudinal distribution of solar radiation reaching the Earth. Understanding? Seasonal, length of day and night, and latitudinal distribution of solar radiation reaching the Earth. This idea, मैंने ये 10 बार ये word use किया होगा अब तक. It was first developed by Siberian astrophysicist known as Milankovitch, and it is known as an Milankovitch cycle. That is what I tell you. We are all going to study in climate. There will be a separate question on the Milankovitch cycle. It is a well-established fact that Milankovitch cycles are responsible for long-term climate change associated with the recent ice age on the Earth. So, ये Pleistocene ice age क्यों हुआ, क्यों नहीं हुआ? We have just seen the effects of the Pleistocene ice age in geomorphology. Ab in the Milankovitch cycle, you will understand why it occurred, because changes in the orbit of the Earth. So this is what is the Pleistocene ice age. Second reason for the climate change. Clear? Understanding everyone? Third is volcanic eruptions. क्या कह रहा होगा this? There are large scale volcanic eruptions which gives out gases. These gases will block the sunlight, and as a result of this, initially there will be global cooling, but then there will be global warming because of the hot gases that are erupted. Fine. Explosive volcanic eruptions emit huge amount of quantities of gases and fine grained debris in the atmosphere, where it spreads around the globe and remains aloft for many years, months or years. However, the gases emitted during the volcanic eruptions will react with the other components of the climatic system, and the volcanic dust eventually settles out. Thus, the cooling effect of the single eruption, no matter how large, is relatively small and short-lived. If you remember in GS, I have told you, volcanic eruption results into short-term global cooling, but long-term global warming. Fine. Whether the volcanic eruptions will result into climate change, last line padho. Because no such period of active volcanism is known to have occurred in the historic times, it is unlikely responsible for recent observable climate changes. Matlab, is the volcanic eruption a reason for present climate change? No. Fine. Yes, they may have occurred in the past, but it is mostly associated with warming and cooling. Recent history may we don't have long periods of volcanic eruptions like Cretaceous, and therefore they have limited impact on the climate change. Another reason for the climate change is plate tectonics. इसमें last point only, climate change triggered by the shifting of the plates happens for millions of years, is very slow process, and it is not at all an important process. See, प्लेट टेक्टोनिक्स के कारण क्लाइमेट चेंज मतलब पहले हिमालयाज बनेंगे फिर वॉल्केनोज देंगे, वो सब इरिलेटेड है. IPCC, United Nations Environment Program and the World Meteorological Organization sponsored the IPCC, a worldwide group of atmospheric and climate scientists that began studying, underline karo ye sabko, the human impacts of the climate change and global warming. The IPCC utilizes, that he said it does not make any own reports, it already utilizes the published literature. Yahi likha hai. The IPCC utilizes peer reviewed literature to analyze all aspects of the climate change, including science, impacts, adaptation, mitigation, to provide independent scientific advice about the climate change. So what does the IPCC do? It publishes the literature regarding the climate change. Kisne form kiya IPCC? UNEP and World Meteorological Organization. Fine. First, second, third, we give a very brief reading to this. अभी मुझे ज़रूरत नहीं है, ऑप्शनल में हमें ज़रूरत नहीं, but ये GS में ज़रूरत है. IPCC का फर्स्ट रिपोर्ट, थर्ड असेसमेंट रिपोर्ट, come directly to this. The IPCC assessment reports. The IPCC assessment reports provide a strong documentation of the planet's human-induced climate changes such as global warming. And therefore, उसको नोबेल प्राइज वो सब मिला. आपको GS के लिए पढ़ना है तो पढ़ो. Why the global warming? Due to greenhouse effect. मुझे बताने की जरूरत नहीं what causes greenhouse effect. What causes the greenhouse effect? Greenhouse gases such as water vapor, carbon dioxide will absorb the long wave radiations, and that results into greenhouse effect. Now see, because this is a textbook and I have given you the complete chapter because I found it relevant. इसका मतलब नहीं कि जिसको पता है they can skip it, but this is your reference chapter. जब भी doubt है you can read it. मैं यहाँ पे read नहीं करूँगा. Fine. But why I gave you? Because everything is explained with the help of diagram. This is also known as the glasshouse effect. Which gases contribute to the greenhouse effect? Of all the human caused gases, carbon dioxide makes the greatest relative contribution in increasing the greenhouse effect. Carbon dioxide enters the atmosphere as a result of combustion of carbon compounds with oxygen, is a colorless, odorless gas that is the same one we exhale from our lungs. The conversion of fossil fuels into energy by the cars, factories and power plants account for the majority of annual human contribution to CO2 emissions, with industrialized nations contributing the most. देखो एक ही सेंटेंस में हाउ मच गुड इंफॉर्मेशन इज गिवन. इसी को हम 200 वर्ड्स में लिखते हैं, कॉस्ट बाय इंडस्ट्रियलाइज, बट दिस इज व्हाट द आंसर राइटिंग शुड बी. As a result of human activities, the atmospheric concentration of CO2 has increased nearly 40% over the past 250 years. 0.01 से 0.03 से 0.045 तक 40% increase over the past 250 years. The concentration of the atmospheric carbon dioxide is currently 450 parts per million. When this book was published, it is 387. Now it is 450 parts per million. 387 को cancel कर दो. The latest data is 450 parts per million. And it is increasing about 2 parts per million each year. This rate of increase is double than that of last 50 years ago. Fine. This book was published in 2011 edition है ये. So it is double than the past 1960 का rate. Nothing has changed. It is doubled only. Second is methane. Is the most abundant human caused greenhouse gas. It is produced by leakage from decomposing trash in the landfills, by methane bleaching domestic cattle. Domestic cattle का fermentation, what is known as, I have taught in the QEP also. There is a word for their digestion process. Unka digestion process is always going to release methane gas. Therefore, we say that rumination. Therefore, we say human cattle farming or cattle rearing is associated with global warming, because no need of writing that word abhi. Methane bleaching domestic cattle, and by agriculture, particularly the cultivation of rice. Even though the methane has lower concentration in the atmosphere than CO2, it has greater ability to produce warming on the per molecule basis. And since the industrial revolution began in about 1750, the concentration of the methane in the atmosphere has increased by 250 percentages. यहाँ पे सारे ग्रीन हाउस गैसेस दिए. You can use this data anywhere. ये टेबल जीएस में यूज करो या ये टेबल ऑप्शनल में यूज करो. कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड कितना था, प्री इंडस्ट्रियल कितना था, प्रेजेंट कॉन्सेंट्रेशन कितना है, प्रेजेंट करंट रेट ऑफ राइज कितना है, सेम विथ मीथेन, सेम विथ नाइट्रस ऑक्साइड, सेम विथ ट्रोपोस्फेरिक ओजोन, सेम विथ CFC11 एंड CFC12. देखो टेंशन मत लो, जितना याद रखता है करो. फाइन. ऐसा नहीं कि एग्जैक्टली ये आना चाहिए. ऑब्वियसली ये टेबल तो बना ही सकते हो. आई मेक दिस इन GS ऑल्सो. फाइन. And come directly to what changes are occurring because of global warming. इसमें you already know the changes. Melting of glaciers and ice caps, shorter winters, shift in the species distribution. What do you mean by shift in the species distribution? Habitat changes how? Because of the global warming, temperate regions will be the new tropical regions. जहाँ पे temperate regions में when the जो crops नहीं होते थे, because of the extremely cold climate, the crops may be grown even in that region. The biodiversity of the tropics will go and settle in the temperate. Tropics will become inhabitable, at least in some parts. इसको हम कहेंगे shift in the species distribution. And steady average rise in the average global and sea surface temperature are just some indications that additional human induced greenhouse gas warming is occurring. Fine. And some of the examples, you read these examples daily in the newspaper. इसी के notes बनाते हो आप. Earth's average temperature has now risen by 0.6 या अब और ज्यादा. What is the latest report saying? 1.2 degrees Celsius. Instead of 0.6, it is 1.2 degrees Celsius over the past 140 years. Second, the rate of warming in the past 50 years is double than the rate what is seen in the last 100 years. Are you making the change? 0.6 के बदले 1.2. Thirdly, worldwide, the 8 warmest years have occurred since 1998 and the 14 warmest years on record have occurred since 1990. Over the past centuries, the planet has experienced the largest increase in the temperature in last 1300 years. 1300 साल पहले सबसे ज्यादा टेम्परेचर था. Today there is a scientific consensus. क्या लिखा है? Scientific consensus. Today there is a scientific consensus that human-induced emissions are responsible for observed warming. हम बाद में लिखेंगे. There is a scientific consensus but no political consensus. Scientists are saying that warming is occurring. Politicians are saying that warming is not occurring. And यहाँ पे हमारा oceanography का topic. What changes are occurring in the oceans? Increasing ocean temperature. Studies have revealed that oceans have absorbed the majority of increased heat in the atmosphere. Millions of ocean temperature observations at the various depths reveal that there has been increase in the surface temperature. The measurement indicate that the global sea surface temperature has increased by 0.6 degrees Celsius. This is right, 0.6 degree Celsius, mainly from 1970. However, the warming has not been uniform throughout the ocean. The greatest temperature increase have been experienced in the Arctic, Antarctic and tropical waters. कहाँ पे है greatest temperature increase? जहाँ जहाँ red color है, Arctic, Antarctic and tropics. Understanding? This is what is the research based writing. ऐसा आंसर होना चाहिए optional का कि what is the variation. Can you make this diagram? ये diagram ऐसे नहीं बनेगा. World map shade करो और shade करो the regions of greatest temperature increase. कौन सा कहाँ पे ग्रे? यहाँ ब्लैक होल कहाँ से आएगा? ग्रे पार्ट कुछ नहीं है क्योंकि ये पायरेटेड कॉपी है तो थोड़ा कलर का डिफरेंस आया होगा, ऐसे कुछ क्योंकि यहाँ पे कहीं ग्रे नहीं है, मतलब इस स्केल में भी ग्रे नहीं होना चाहिए. एंड बट जब आप या मे बी पीडीएफ रीडर का कुछ प्रॉब्लम हो. No need of this experiment. Those who want to read, they can read it. The impacts of the warmer oceans are far reaching and will persist for several centuries. Why several centuries or several years? The reason being water will take time to get heated and to get cooled. So पानी गर्म हुआ, so we are going to see उसका impact for several centuries. For example, increased sea temperatures are likely to affect temperature sensitive organisms such as corals. Right? In addition, the increased seawater temperatures are likely to affect the distribution of sea ice, that is melting of ice caps and glaciers, ocean deep water circulation, thermoline circulation, and El Nino La Nina events and the development of hurricanes. चारों एक ही पॉइंट में आ गया. Development of hurricanes, El Nino La Nina, more phenomena such as El Nino La Nina. Ocean currents will be affected. Fine, क्योंकि cold water sink ही नहीं करेगा आप, so there will be no warm current and cold current, and obviously distribution of this thing. Increasing hurricane activity. Hurricane के बदले cyclones लिखो. Now this book is US based, so they are using the word hurricanes. We can use the word cyclones, tropical cyclone activity. Many scientists suggest that warmer oceans will increase, I am skipping all that, will increase the heat which fuels the tropical cyclones. Example, recent tropical cyclones, Fani Bini ka example. Example, tropical cyclone Fani. Second paragraph is very, very important. Although the number of tropical cyclones have not increased worldwide, the scientific consensus is that global warming has led to more intensification of the tropical cyclones or hurricanes. Hurricanes are becoming more and more intense. Fani became very intense. Getting it? Example, a study of historical Atlantic hurricanes. You can put this example only because it is paper 1. ऐसा नहीं कि Indian example ही होना चाहिए. Over the past 1500 years suggests that the times of peak hurricane activity are related to increase in the sea surface temperatures and the reinforcing the effects of El Nino, La Nina like climatic conditions. इसको पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं है. नॉर्थ अमेरिका का वाटर बिकम्स मोर कूल, it circulates downwards near the Canada, and therefore we have waters as the Gulf Stream etc. coming here. So ocean current will be affected. Evidences from the deep sea sediments and computer models indicate that changes in the global deep water circulation pattern can dramatically and abruptly affect the climate. Means ocean currents will be affected. ये सब करने की जरूरत नहीं है. This is a textbook. It is explaining you the things. You already know the things. Many scientific studies suggest that the buildup of greenhouse gases in the atmosphere will change the ocean circulation. One way in which this could happen is that the warmer air temperatures, warm ocean current के ऊपर की air temperature will be warmer, will increase the rate at which glaciers in the Greenland melt, forming a pool of fresh low density surface water in the North Atlantic Ocean. The fresh water would then inhibit the downwelling that generates the North Atlantic thermohaline circulation या deep ocean water circulation. Fine? याद है? Ice is by brine rejection. Up that ice will melt because the Gulf Stream will become very stronger. So the ice will melt. There will be fresh water on the surface of near Greenland. Because it is a fresh water, it is not as denser. It will not go below. It will not sink. If it does not sink, there will be no warm current and cold current ka impact. There will be no upwelling. Getting it? Melting of polar ice. देखो हर चीज को उसने कैसे डायरेक्टली नहीं कहा कि मेल्टिंग ऑफ पोलर आइस, उसने एविडेंसेस दी है. कंप्यूटर मॉडल्स हैव प्रेडिक्टेड. दिस इज अगेन योर आंसर शुड बी एटलीस्ट. सी आई एम नॉट वरीड अबाउट जीएस. जीएस में आप डायरेक्टली लिखो पॉइंट वाइज, बट ऑप्शनल में ऐसे लिखो कंप्यूटर मॉडल्स. नहीं तो ये हैंड आउट देने की जरूरत नहीं थी बिकॉज ये सबको भी पता है. I just want you to know how to write the answers. Computer models have predicted that global warming will affect Earth's polar regions in dramatic ways. बाकी का चीजें आपको ऑलरेडी पता है. Since 1978, the satellite analysis of the extent of the Arctic Ocean indicates that there is dramatically shrinking and thinning at an accelerating rate. In the past decade alone, there has been loss of over 2 million square kilometers of Arctic ice. Fine? Indeed, during the past 15 years, the decline in the Arctic ice has occurred much faster than the models have predicted, which indicates that we should now move beyond Paris Agreement. ये सब नहीं दिया है, but ये सब आप लिख सकते हो, which indicates that we should now move beyond the Paris target. Disappearance of ice will affect the albedo, right? Albedo is the amount of sunlight that falls on the earth and is directly reflected. जितना ज़्यादा albedo, उतना कम heating. No albedo, everyone? So disappearance of the sea ice is likely to enhance future warming in the region because of lower amounts of sea ice will reflect less amount of sun's radiation back to the space, creating a positive feedback loop. फिर से systems analysis and exacerbating the problems as the heat is absorbed by the newly uncovered ocean. Simple word में लिख सकते हो, it will positive feedback मतलब albedo will decrease, therefore more sunlight will be absorbed, more ice will melt, and ये vicious cycle. Fine? It will also have an impact on the ecosystems. Just don't write Arctic ecosystem etc. बाकी ये सब छोड़ सकते हो. And increase in the ocean acidity. The human increase in the amount of CO2 in the atmosphere have several implications for ocean chemistry and for marine life. Recent studies have shown that little less than, मैंने क्या बोला था 40%, so you can write 40% या little less than 50%. Little less than half of the carbon dioxide released by the human burning of fossil fuel stays in the atmosphere, and about a third currently ends up in oceans, dissolving in the seawater. Evidences is mounting that this additional carbon dioxide overwhelms the ocean's natural ability to buffer itself. मतलब ये excess carbon dioxide oceans निकाल नहीं सकता. Otherwise natural जो carbon dioxide है वो ocean निकाल सकता है by the process of this thing. This absorbed carbon dioxide forms carbonic acid, lowering the ocean's pH, known as ocean acidification, changing the balance of carbonate and bicarbonate ions. Fine? The decline in pH threatens a diverse assortment of calcifying organisms, creatures that grow calcium carbonate shell. हम लिखेंगे एक ही word में, affects the shell bearing animals such as coccoliths, foraminiferas, algae, urchin, mollusks and corals. Thus affecting the entire oceanic food chain. That is, these organisms provide essential food and habitat to many other species, and their demise could affect the entire ocean ecosystem. Example, recent studies have shown that in the last 20 years, ocean acidification has already caused 15% decrease in the growth of corals in Australia's Great Barrier Reef. So you see the animals in the pelagic environment, right? and this is the diagram for the ocean acidification. Very good diagram. pH is decreasing as the dissolved carbon dioxide is increasing. And the last is rise in the sea level. Analysis of the worldwide trend tide records indicate that there has been rise in the global sea level between 10 to 25 centimeters, and therefore this will result into submergence of the coastal regions, जिसके ऊपर हमने एक पूरा डिस्कशन किया था. इसको मैं इन ग्राफ्स को छोड़ दो. Another changes, recent study indicates that increasing amount of carbon dioxide, see these are the new points, you will not find in Indian books, Savindri Singh ko sab mein nahi milega. Other predicted changes. A recent study indicates that increasing amount of CO2 dissolved in the seawater makes it more efficient at transporting sound waves. Researchers predict that by 2050, ocean sounds such as whale calls may travel 70% farther than today. The effect on marine animals is unknown. We don't know what will happen if the whale calls can travel. Another is dissolved oxygen in the seawater, which is vital for the most marine organisms which extract dissolved oxygen directly from the seawater. As the ocean warms, its ability to hold and carry dissolved oxygen is diminished. Fine? While at the same time the metabolic rate of the marine organisms increase, which means they needs higher level of dissolved oxygen. So क्या होगा? Oxygen कम रहेगा, उनको ज़्यादा oxygen की demand रहेगी. So can you write here that is the biological and chemical oxygen demand will increase, or biochemical oxygen demand will increase? You can note it down here. Biochemical oxygen demand causing what is already be given. Dead zones in the oceans, or what is known as a biological desert in the oceans. Now for your understanding, कोई करने की जरूरत नहीं. Still another impact, ये आंसर में लिखने की जरूरत नहीं अगर याद नहीं आया तो. Still another effect of ocean warming is the alteration of ocean productivity, which has implication for distribution of all marine organisms. As the ocean surface warms, ocean stratification will increase. Stratification मतलब colder, denser, warmer, ऐसा will increase, and a stronger thermohaline will develop. Stronger thermohaline. As a result, productivity is expected to decrease because of fewer nutrients caused by reduced upwelling and by nutrient depletant upwelling. मतलब upwelling rate of the ocean will also be affected. ये जरूर लिखना आंसर में. That is, the upwelling zones will also be affected because thermohaline is now more denser, more stronger. Last point, warm waters can also affect the marine organisms directly. याद रखना, क्वेश्चन आता है जनरली पेपर 2 में, why tropical regions are not good for fishing? Because वहाँ पे upwelling नहीं होता. Cold water is always good for fishing. because warm water में dissolved oxygen is less. We have just seen there is less of corals. Why? Because of उनका shells are dissolved. Thirdly, it has less dissolved oxygen, and that is the warm waters can also affect marine organisms directly. Many types of phytoplanktons and other organisms are very sensitive to the changes in water temperature. See, earth living organisms are not that sensitive. We can adjust to the wide range of temperature in the earth, but marine organisms जहाँ पे temperature कभी इतना change ही नहीं होता, they are very sensitive to the changes. Getting it? वहाँ पे टेम्परेचर इतना ज्यादा चेंज नहीं होता, इसलिए चैलेंजर डीप में भी लाइफ है, क्योंकि टेम्परेचर इतना ज्यादा चेंज नहीं होगा. थर्मोहलाइन लेयर के बाद चाहे वो चैलेंजर डीप तक होने दो, टेम्परेचर विल बी 1 डिग्री सेल्सियस ओनली. दैट इज नॉट द केस ऑन द लैंड. टेम्परेचर विल बी डिफरेंट इन दिल्ली एंड टेम्परेचर विल बी डिफरेंट इन द माउंट एवरेस्ट. सो therefore biodiversity is not well distributed on the land, but वहाँ पे it is very well distributed. Sensitive to the changes in the water temperature. For example, a large study of phytoplankton in North Atlantic shows that ocean warming has increased the abundance of phytoplanktons in the cooler regions and decreased in the warmer regions. क्या होगा? Phytoplanktons will decrease and therefore fishing will decrease. In response to rising ocean temperature, marine organisms have also begun to migrate in the deeper waters and towards the poles. ठीक है? So these are the impacts of climate change. कुछ नए insights मिले, वही घिसे पिटे insights से. Fishes are also migrating. Upwelling zones का stratification भी होगा. Dissolved oxygen कम हो जाएगा. Fine. Phytoplanktons will reduce in the tropical waters. They will be increasing in the cooler waters. इसी को कहते हैं redistribution of the species will be affected. Fine. क्या करना चाहिए? GS में भी आप ये करोगे. Solution is what India and Germany says, that you spread the iron dust in the sea. I have already taught in the previous batches of GS. By spraying the iron dust, iron acts as a nutrient for phytoplanktons. Because it acts as a nutrient for phytoplanktons, phytoplanktons suddenly grow large in number. जितने ज़्यादा phytoplanktons they absorb, उतना ज़्यादा carbon dioxide. This is what is known as iron fertilization. कुछ करने की जरूरत नहीं. Solution वही है कि एक तो emissions कम करो, या दूसरा है you must have heard this word, geoengineering for carbon sequestration. I'll require this again in the chapter 5. दो types के है geoengineering. One is reducing the amount of sunlight reaching, जिसको हम कहेंगे climate engineering, जिसके ऊपर इस साल क्वेश्चन था. Sulfate aerosols, spraying the aerosols so that the sunlight decreases, right? दूसरा है removing the human caused greenhouse gases from the atmosphere and disposing them somewhere else. इसको हम कहेंगे carbon sequestration and carbon capture and storage. बाद में पढ़ाऊंगा आपको. Skip all this and come directly here. Iron hypothesis. This is nothing but spraying of the iron dust. पूरा पढ़ने की जरूरत नहीं. बस you can just know. यहाँ से यहाँ तक. Seeding the ocean with essential nutrients Iron stimulates the productivity and draws the heat trapping carbon dioxide from the atmosphere that is used by the phytoplanktons. Some of this carbon dioxide is tied up as a tissue or in fecal pellets, sinks towards the sea floor, thereby removing it from the environment. Fine? Fine, this is what is known as an Loha-Fex experiment by India and Germany. Understanding? Loha-Fex Q? Iron fixation. Loha is iron. ये एक्सपेरिमेंट का नाम है लोहा फिक्स बाय इंडियन है जर्मनी. आयरन क्या करेगा? फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स के ग्रोथ को प्रमोट करेगा, क्योंकि आयरन एक्ट्स एज ए न्यूट्रिएंट फॉर अ फाइटोप्लैंक्टन, वो उनका न्यूट्रिशन का सोर्स है एक. सो जितना ज्यादा आयरन उतने ज्यादा फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे, जितने ज्यादा फाइटोप्लैंक्टन्स मल्टीप्लाई करेंगे उतना ज्यादा फोटोसिंथेसिस. जैसे फॉर ह्यूमंस में भी कैल्शियम इज अ न्यूट्रिएंट, वैसे फॉर देम iron is a nutrient. And second is sequestering the excess carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. Sequester मतलब डिपॉजिट करना. Excess जो कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड है from the atmosphere or from the oceans is captured by scrubbers. वो सब यहाँ पे नहीं दिया है, वो environment ecology है. So it is captured by scrubbers, changed into the liquid form और लेके बहुत ज़्यादा deep inside the ocean floors को pump करके store किया जाता है permanently. This is what is known as an carbon sequestration. So successful experiments have involved capturing emissions either before they are released in the atmosphere, इसलिए मैंने कहा चिमनी में ही कैप्चर किया जाता है using scrubbers, or directly from the atmosphere and then pumping the gas into the deep oceans or underground reservoirs. This process is known as sequestering the carbon dioxide. बस यहाँ तक. बाकी का करने की जरूरत नहीं. You can solve question number 12, question number 8, question number 14. Question number 14. Fine. थोड़ा सोचो इन तीनों के लिए. Now this with this we have finished the oceanography. Getting it? Come to the past year question. Describe the causes and the consequences of the sea level change. Can you write this answer? You have to obviously mention about the natural causes also, but more focus should be on the human induced causes. Potential marine energy resources मैं कल handout दे दूंगा इस मई का कुरुक्षेत्र. Fine? Explain the concept of microcarbon sink and its relevance. It is not a question of oceanography. वहाँ पे लिखना it is a question of environment, ecosystem, chapter 5. Between the low energy coast and the coral coast, चलो ये एक बचा है. I will let you know. डिस्कस द मैरीटाइम जोन्स, लिख सकते हो आज. मैरीटाइम जोन्स इज नथिंग बट अनक्लॉस. टेरिटोरियल सी क्या है? फाइन. Can you write an open question, give a critical account of the reasons and the consequences of marine pollution? मैंने पढ़ाया नहीं, बट पढ़ाऊं या खुद लिखोगे? बताऊंगा आपको, कल डिस्कस करूंगा, बट खुद लिख सकते हो. मरीन पोल्यूशन, डेड जोन्स इन द ओशंस. Atolls present the most challenging explanation in the evolution of the coral reefs. How will you approach this answer? ये डिस्कस करो. सबसे पहले what are the characteristics of atolls? फाइन. फिर बताना कि उनका फॉर्मेशन बाय द ग्लेशियल सब्सिडेंस थियोरी क्या कहता है. व्हाई इट इज नॉट ट्रू. ये सब जगह सब्सिडेंस नहीं होगा. फिर बताना मरे की थियोरी क्या कहता है. मरे की थियोरी कुछ नहीं कहता. फिर बताना व्हाट डज डैली से, कहाँ कहाँ अटॉल हो सकता है, जो सी माउंट्स एंड ग्लेशियर्स है. And therefore, none of the theories have properly explained the formation of atoll. In the regions where subsidence has occurred, maybe Darwin is right. In the regions where subsidence has not occurred, the Daly is right. And thus, we can say, in the words of Darwin, वो statement को use करो अपने हिसाब से. These theories are complementary to each other and give a for explanation regarding the formation of atolls on the specific basis, but there is no universal formation of atolls. कोई भी यूनिवर्सल, बाकी फ्रिंजिंग रिफ कैसे डेवलप हुआ, बैरियर कैसे डेवलप हुआ, सब प्रॉपरली बता सकते हैं, बट अटोल्स नहीं. क्वेश्चन नंबर 22, यू स्टैटिक चेंजेस इन द सी लेवल, मतलब global changes in the sea level, rise and the fall of sea level. Obviously with the rise in the sea level, it should be answered. Fine. Obviously देखो क्वेश्चन नंबर 12, एग्जामिन क्रिटिकली द थियरीज ऑफ द फॉर्मेशन ऑफ कोरल रीफ्स एंड अटोल्स. 60 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है, इसलिए सारी थियरीज लिखनी पड़ेंगी, बट अभी ऐसा क्वेश्चन नहीं आएगा. अभी ओनली वन क्वेश्चन. सो बिफोर आई स्टार्ट क्लाइमेट, डू वन होमवर्क कि थोड़ा सोच के आओ ऑन मरीन रिसोर्सेस. एंड डिवाइड योर आंसर इनटू, जैसे आज हमने किया था, फूड रिसोर्सेस, फाइन, एनर्जी रिसोर्सेस, I guess I have already discussed with you this. Conventional, non-conventional, mineral resources, and other biotic. और यही है पोटेंशियल एनर्जी रिसोर्सेस। बट क्यों पोटेंशियल? क्योंकि कॉस्ट, टेक्नोलॉजी वो सब नहीं है, इसलिए पोटेंशियल। उनका लिमिटेशन क्या है, एक्सेट्रा। फाइन। सो बिफोर आई स्टार्ट ओशनोग्राफी टुमारो, मैं पेपर 2 का एक छोटा टॉपिक डिस्कस करूंगा। दैट इज, इफ यू लुक इन द सिलेबस, मरीन रिसोर्सेज, इंडियन ज्योग्राफी का, सो दैट ब्लू रिवोल्यूशन, नील क्रांति मिशन, ये सब अभी ही डिस्कस हो जाएगा। फाइन। पेपर 2, हाँ, मरीन रिसोर्सेज। क्लियर विद दिस? एनी डाउट्स इन ओशनोग्राफी? कैन यू डोंट यू रियलाइज कि बहुत स्ट्रांग होना चाहिए ओशनोग्राफी, क्योंकि सबसे आसान है। कितना दिन लगेगा ओशनोग्राफी पढ़ने में? मैक्सिमम 3 to 4 days। जियोमॉर्फोलॉजी पढ़ने में 1 महीना। फाइन। बट ओशनोग्राफी पढ़ने में 3 to 4 days, नथिंग एल्स। व्हाट इज द ओनली डिफिकल्ट पार्ट हियर? थियरीज एक ही है, बाकी कहीं भी थियरीज नहीं है। गेटिंग इट? सेम इज क्लाइमेटोलॉजी। राइट? So before I go to the climatology, just come to the syllabus of climatology. मेरा काम आसान हो जाएगा if you tell me whether you know this structure and composition of the atmosphere. GS: troposphere, stratosphere, mesosphere, gases, etc. Fine. So can I go very fast here? Printed notes के साथ। इंसोलेशन पता है क्या है? सनलाइट। वर्सेस टेम्परेचर पता है क्या है? Do you know what is the difference between insolation and temperature? Insolation is the amount of sunlight, temperature is the heat, sensible heat that we find. So इसमें से एक टॉपिक जो ऑब्वियसली हम करेंगे प्रॉपरली, वो टेम्परेचर इन्वर्जन है, बिकॉज टेम्परेचर इन्वर्जन जो हम जीएस में करते हैं वो बहुत सुपरफिशियली करते हैं, यहाँ पे वी आर गोइंग टू डू इन डिटेल। एंड वन टॉपिक विच वी आर गोइंग टू डू इन डिटेल, जिसको हम लिखेंगे क्लास में, बाकी के हम नहीं लिखेंगे, इज एनामोलस टेम्परेचर। फाइन। That is the only topic. GS में आप कभी नहीं पढ़ोगे। Then I guess there is no problem in the pressure belts and winds. I'll obviously explain you trade winds, westerlies, local winds, and we will be doing in detail. यहाँ पे red color पे हमारा focus होगा jet streams, उनका origin, index cycle of jet streams। हमारा focus होगा air masses। बाकी we will do very quickly cyclones, fronts and anticyclones। Again our focus will be on cycles, Köppen, Thornwhite and Trevartha। Fine. So these are the 5 areas we'll be spending our time more on. बाकी का areas we'll be doing it very quickly. Clear with this? So we'll meet tomorrow. बाकी का things you revise it. कल मैं थोड़ा extended class लूँगा और ये खत्म करूँगा जितना जल्दी हो सके उतने जल्दी.